Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to another episode of Trade Talk, the PSW podcast. Trade Talk is PSW podcast series produced in collaboration with Sustainable Development Policy Institute. Through Trade Talks, we keep you up to date with current market trends and international trade and transit ecosystem. I am Usman Mehboob, People and OD Manager, Pakistan Single Window, and your today's host of Trade Talks. Our today's topic is international trade, an enabler of Pakistan economic recovery. We are joined today by Dr. Samina Zehra. Dr. Samina Zehra is the National Project Manager of Reforms and Innovation Project at the UNDP project in Pakistan. Dr. Zehra brings more than 25 years of experience in the institution reform cells constituted by the Federal Board of Revenue. Dr. Samina Zehra last posting was as Director General, National Institute of Management, Karachi. She had been part of several international and national workshops at UNDP, USAID, UNCTAD and World Customs Organization. Dr. Samina holds a PhD degree in International Trade Law from the University of Southampton, UK, and LLM in International Law from the University of Sussex, UK, and a Master's in English Literature from Kennedy College for Women, Lahore. Dr. Samina, welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you for having me over for this discussion, and I'm also grateful for a very generous introduction.
My first question to you, Dr. Samina, is about trade and the economy. In many ways, trade forms the backbone of the world's economies. It is responsible for stimulating investment, job creation, economic growth, and improving standards of living in 2022. How would you comment on the economic crisis of Pakistan and the global recession? In particular, can you elaborate on its impact on cross-border trade?
You have set a solid context for this question. You have mentioned that there are so many external and internal factors that are having an impact on Pakistan's economic trajectory. As we all know, Pakistan cannot exist in an island, and whatever happens in the world has a direct or indirect impact on the way Pakistan's economic recovery takes place. So, for the past few years, the world has witnessed some unprecedented shock waves in the economy of the world. Let's start with COVID. So, the COVID pandemic affected adversely the global GDP by about 5%. And Pakistan obviously could not remain aloof from this impact. Then, more recently, the Ukraine and Russia conflict again has set a lot of countries off their economic growth path. As you know, we depend a lot on fuel import, also grains import on Ukraine and other regional countries. And after this conflict, our supply side has faced a lot of constraints. So these supply side constraints have put inflationary pressures on people. Since there is a little supply of these essential items, inflation is increasing. Then another aspect of our economic challenge has been to keep the rupee stable versus the dollar. And sometimes almost artificial attempts at keeping the US dollar stable, its equation with rupee stable, we have sort of hampered the growth. Recently, I have read in the newspaper some media reports that national banks are not letting the importers open their LCs for the import of capital goods like machinery or raw material for setting up new industries. So I'm sure these are the instructions passed on by State Bank for very solid reasons. But then we have to really review our economic policies that on one hand we are trying to stabilize our rupee, but on the other hand we are obstructing the growth of the economy. So the challenge is there, and the challenge has aggravated in Pakistan due to various political and social reasons. Most recently, due to the climate, we have adversely our society and our economy has suffered billions of rupees of losses in terms of property, as well as the human cost is huge. But the thing is that out of this crisis, now we have to start thinking in terms of what are the best suited policies for putting our economy back at the growth trajectory. And while talking about the growth and economic recovery, we should not forget the welfare of our people. So whatever policies we adopt for our economic growth have to be the ones that are most suited to the welfare of our people also. I think this is what my take is on this question.
Thank you for your interested take on the issue. Dr. Samina, I will move on to my next question. Over the year, the world has witnessed a significant advancement of cross-border production networks known as global value chains. Dr. Samina, do you have any ideas on what modifications are required by Pakistan's current supply chain and production networks to increase its participation in global value chains?
Thank you. I think this is a very relevant question, and I'll start giving answer to this question by saying that Pakistan, in past 60 or 70 years, has been facing what we call a concentration risk, and I'll explain what I mean by concentration risk. Our audience would know, and you would also know, that most of our export market is concentrated either in US or Europe, UK or China. And most of our product basket has also been concentrated in either textile or leather goods or sports or at best the surgical goods. So over the years, we haven't really tried to expand neither our export destinations nor our production capacity. So I think now is the time that we start thinking in terms of expanding and diversifying and start exploring other parts of the world for our export markets. And there is some policy shift in this regard. I'm sure at the Ministry of Commerce, there are policies being made that cater to this requirement and this challenge. And another important aspect of integrating with global supply chains is that you create an enabling regulatory environment. If your regulatory environment and your governance landscape is such that it does not give enough guarantees to the investors, then nobody is going to come and invest in your country. So look at the big corporations like Nike or Samsung. Why do you think they have moved to Vietnam or other such countries? It's the assurance that their investment will be secure, and it's also the cost and ease of doing business that has prompted them to shift their production houses to these countries. So I think we need to have a dual policy where we create an enabling environment in the country so that we blend into the future supply chain of international trade, but we also start thinking in terms of diversifying our export endeavors.
I would like to ask you a little about regional integration. In your opinion, what does Pakistan need to do to increase regional economic integration and improve its regional connectivity?
Okay. So regional trade is a bit of a tricky one because the trade theories tell us that the regional trade is the most suitable trade option because your distances are smaller and your tastes are similar. So you have a greater chance of getting dividends for your exported goods. But unfortunately, due to certain political exigencies of which everyone is aware, we haven't really been able to optimize our export potential with our at least three of our immediate neighbors, that is India, Afghanistan, and Iran. But all is not lost. I think now is the time that we, again, as a country, start thinking futuristically. And I can at least think of two options. One is the Central Asian Economic Cooperation Agreement. The countries falling into it, like China, Afghanistan, and other Central Asian republics. And another option is Pakistan is signatory to the TIR Convention, which is the UN Convention on Road Transportation. So we are a signatory to that, and under that convention, we have already, I think, started some traffic between Iran and Turkey. And under that convention, the goods are not thoroughly examined, only the seals on the containers are checked. So we are providing this very important connection for regional connectivity. So similarly for Central Asian republics, if we start exploring our trading options with these countries, and if we start by expanding and improving our connectivity, our road infrastructure, our standardization, procedural standardization, documentary standardization, then once the connectivity is achieved, I think the trade will come automatically. So we can begin by improving our connectivity and regional connectivity, and I think trading outcomes will almost be automatic after that. So despite having this political limitation, and I have to say that Pakistan has made some robust effort in reaching out to its neighbors, but unfortunately this effort has not been reciprocated from the other side. But we need to now start thinking beyond these neighbors and think in terms of becoming a more effective regional trading player in cooperation with the other countries of the region.
Can you tell us a little bit about what service trade is and how it can be the future of trade in Pakistan?
Okay, so services trade is something that is intangible, something that we cannot see. The trade of something, goods trade is when we have something concrete in our hand, or we can see it or touch it physically and we are trading it. So that's goods trade. But services trade is regarding those services that we cannot see. For example, I'll give you an example: traveling services or tourism services, health services, providing health services or education services or entertainment services, for that example, for that matter. You know how huge the entertainment industry is now. Entertainment content is produced and just put on the digital platforms, and the whole world can have access to those entertainment services. Netflix is one example which all of us use. So surprisingly, services trade right now in Pakistan are almost 60% of our GDP. But proportionately, our share in the export of services is only 6% of our total, or nearly 10% of our total export. So I think trade in services is a huge untapped area. And the dual advantage of promoting services trade is that it brings in its wake human development also. So for example, if you are promoting health services or education services or ICT services, Pakistan has made some progress in IT services export. So if you are promoting services trade, you are simultaneously developing your human resource as well. So there's a dual advantage of promoting services trade, because it uplifts your entire population. And we have a special opportunity in services trade because we have a huge youth bulge, as we all know, and we haven't really given them a roadmap to their future. So if we were to train and prepare our youth to explore into services trade potential, then I think we'll be not only earning a lot of precious foreign exchange for the country, but we will also be improving the economic and social conditions of a large chunk of our population.
Here's my last question, Dr. Samina. In global supply chain, one of the most challenging stages is clearance from custom and other relevant agencies. For trade facilitation improvement, Pakistan has developed Pakistan Single Window. How do you think the PSW platform can enhance and benefit the trade and ecosystem of Pakistan?
I think this is a very pertinent last question, because it gives me an opportunity of summing up whatever I had said while answering the first questions. So Pakistan's single window is an enabler and is an excellent instrument in bringing about all those changes that we have talked about. We've talked about ease of doing business, bringing down the cost of doing business, creating an enabling regulatory environment for people to invest in the country. So Pakistan's single window gives you literally a window and an opportunity of doing that. I think it's a great initiative. All these departments are integrated. Your investors and traders will have a very easy one-stop shop in the form of Pakistan single window, where all their documentation is done much more smoothly than going from office to office. There would be much more transparency provided you have sufficient and robust risk analysis mechanisms. You can almost let your trade go seamlessly through your borders. You can preempt risks. It will be a great tool for the managers of the system, the customs and the other departments, whichever are integrated into Pakistan single window. So it will be a great tool of management, not only for the professionals dealing in these departments, but it will give your investors and your clients, your traders, a lot of confidence into the smoothness of the system and into the transparency of the system. So it's an excellent tool, but I think Pakistan single window senior management needs to have clear vision, needs to have clear broken down goalposts, so that in 1 year's time, 2 years' time, they know where they are heading, what is their vision, what is it that they want to achieve. Provided they have a clear roadmap, I think Pakistan single window can provide a sort of paradigm shift to how cross-border trade is conducted in the country, and eventually become integrated with the international system of you mentioned global value chains, you mentioned services trade. So eventually it can become an enabler for achieving all those other goals also.
Dr. Samina, you have given us a lot of ideas and even new approaches. On behalf of SDPI and PSW, we would like to thank you for sparing your time and sharing your thoughtful ideas. Thank you all for joining us for today's Trade Talks. We will be back soon with more Trade Talks. Thank you.